Welcome to the Pro-2-Pro podcast, where we explore the stories and strategies of successful entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Keith Hanenian, and in each episode, I'll be sitting down with a different guest to learn about their journey, their challenges, and their insights into building a successful business. As a lawyer who works with industry leaders, I've seen firsthand the passion and drive that it takes to turn an idea into a thriving enterprise. And in this podcast, I want to share those stories with you, our viewers and listeners. Whether you're an inspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or just someone who loves a good success story, you'll find something to inspire and inform you in each episode. So sit back, relax, and join us as we dive into the world of entrepreneurship and discover the insights that can help you succeed in your own business. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Pro-2-Pro with my good friend, Paul Connell. You all may have seen Paul on TV as the boyfriend to Dolores Catania on New Jersey Housewives, but many of you don't recognize or realize that he's also an incredible entrepreneur and successful businessman who emigrated from Ireland, and I'm here to talk to him on Pro-2-Pro about his successful evolution from a young immigrant over to the States, and also talk about life. So welcome, Paul. Thanks for joining us.
Keith, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for that nice intro.
Oh, you're very welcome. So we obviously got to know each other through Dolores, who I've known for, since she was 18, and is friends with my wife, Kristen. But we just hit it off, you and I. It just happened, like a brother from another mother, which is incredible. But I really am in awe with regard to your story, which I only know pieces, right? So little bits and pieces. And what I wanted to do, if you could, because what we do on Pro-2-Pro with the entrepreneurs and various guests for our listening audience and our viewers is we try to peel back the onion and get an understanding of where you started. People see you where you are now, but you obviously didn't just land here. You've evolved over the years. And my understanding is that you were born in Ireland, and just talk to us a little bit about, your growing up in Ireland and your decision to come to the States.
Everything you've said so far is on point. I grew up in Ireland, a very different country to America. So my understanding and my rearing, and now that I have kids, I see how much I had to change when I moved to this country, rearing kids, considering how I was raised. But growing up in Ireland, it's a different process I see from around the world. You're taught at a very young age to learn to work, to survive. It's just a natural instinct that your family teach you, mostly because it's low income. We don't have a lot of money. When you have a big family or a substantial sized family, you have to go and help the family support, whether it's doing errands, doing a little bit of landscaping. At the time when I was 13, I became a milkman. So I was in school and I used to get up to deliver milk. And it was like nothing to me. I didn't think anything of it. It felt normal to me, even though some of my friends were not doing it. I just felt like this is normal. This is what I meant to be a worker. That's what it felt like. So I felt good going to work. I didn't feel good going to school. So
were you a good student or were you average student?
No, I was a horrible student. I was an actual horrible student. My mom used to say, like the teachers say, he's going to be okay. He's not doing what he's meant to do, but he'll be okay eventually. And that's funny that my mom does say that to me still to this day. She says to me, she always said, you'll never have to worry about him. And I guess I have a little bit of a character to me. So they probably, being a teacher and having so many kids in front of you, they spot these things as things come along. And I guess she read into the mystic bowl that she had,
Paul, growing up, did you have anybody, when you were a teenager that you modeled after, or you saw someone who had such a work ethic that kind of instilled that in you at a young age?
I mean, my dad, because you understand, like social media was not a thing back then. I remember we had a TV that was black and white. We didn't even have a color TV for a long time.
What year was this? You were a teenager?
Yeah.
And so you had a black and white TV. So if you were to compare your lifestyle growing up as a teenager in Ireland, was it like dated if you compared it to now? Like, were you years behind? Did it feel like?
It wasn't years behind. It was actually years in advance, because you learn to survive with minimum. And I think that's more than what we have too many options today. So having my own children, the options are this is like just so long. It's like they don't even know what they want sometimes. They walk into a store, they lose their breath when they were younger, not now, but they'd be like, this didn't know what they want. When I was growing up, you didn't have any options, but we were never unhappy. We would be sulking or unhappy if we lose a game against each other. That was it.
So it's the simple things growing up. So you didn't have all the distractions for all the crazy choices that these kids have now, where they basically it's immediate gratification and they lose interest and move on to something else. They have no journey among themselves to develop any self-worth.
No consistency.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
big part.
What was it that got you to decide that you wanted to move to the States? Like, what brought that on?
I was a guy, and a guy's guy, and we used to like at the point where I worked and I had money, so I could go out. So in Ireland, there's always a party. There's always somewhere to go and have fun. I mean, it's anywhere, but I had a great bunch of friends, and it was in the era where dance music was coming in, and it was all clubs and big flashing lights and kind of cool stuff, like very, very like unfamiliar ground to all of us growing up. But we kind of got our age took us to an implanted into a time of like house music just took off in Ireland, right? So we became like this person that would like go out all the time, and it was a party time, right? So by going out and being in that scene so much, there's good roads and there's bad roads. I got on some bad paths and lived a life of what I thought was it was cool at the moment, but not cool in general. So, after a while, just there was like plateaus where I always felt like I just was over. I would never get anywhere else. I'd reached my maximum, if you could understand, even though I had nothing. And potentially in my mind, I reached my maximum. I knew what was going to take place before it took place. I could see the path that was happening, whether I picked a good path or a bad path.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's kind of familiar for me because I was in New Jersey for a long period of time. I went to school in New Jersey. I was raised in New Jersey. After we moved out, I moved from Brooklyn to New Jersey. I was 12, and I lived in Jersey until after law school. But while I was, as I was making that transition with school and I used to come down for spring breaks all the time in Florida. I kind of needed a different venue for my life.
Right.
I didn't like the redundancy of my life at that point. And it was, let's just say it was not a favorable decision on my part from my family's perspective, because I was the only one. I just left, and I've never looked back since. It was the best decision I ever made, but I just needed to do it for me. Exactly.
So that's technically in a short scenario what had taken place. And then, just multiple different things. And like my mom and dad saying like, what are you going to do? Like you've worked, you don't want to work. You want like, and then I start working in places and kind of like getting bored real easy. And then I start becoming the person that I just talked about. Too many options. It's easier to go out and have fun than have to get up and go to work. That's what I used to think. So my mindset was always like, be the fun guy, because they always have fun. But there's nothing secure about that. So what you earn today goes today. You don't have anything longevity, right? So I didn't understand any of that. So my mom took a call one day from a personal friend of ours, and he just said, he goes, listen, I want to bring Paul over. I think he'll do well here, and I'd like to see him, get out of Ireland and see what else is in the world.
Had you ever traveled outside of Ireland prior to that?
Yeah. So living in Ireland, I went to Spain. I lived in Tenerife for a while, a couple of months there. We bartended. But going on vacation in Ireland is so simple. At the time, it was cheap to get on a plane. Like I remember you used to get on a plane and you'd be drinking vodka and smoking cigarettes. Like that's what I remember when I was growing up. The plane would be covered in smoke as you're going to like. Yeah. I think back of all the stuff. I'm like, how did this even happen? But so with the short trips to Greece, Ibiza, they're only 2.5 hours away. So
yes. A lot of people don't realize. I go to the UK a lot, and a lot of people don't realize that over on that side of the pond, you are so close to other countries.
Everywhere.
It's like in the States here, we go to other states, but over there you could get on a plane or a train and you're in a completely different country.
Correct.
Um,
Correct.
and it's so close and easy to do, and you get a completely different cultural impact
Yeah.
at going to these different places. It's interesting you mentioned Ibiza too, because my understanding of Ibiza is that it's like a party capital. A lot of people would go to Ibiza to
Yeah.
party
Amazing party capital, a big place for that to happen. And if you're into that, that's you just go. You get off the plane, and that's what you do.
So your mom had somebody in the States already
Yeah.
that was there and settled. So how old were you about when this process took place?
So let's do the math. I'm 49 now, and I'm here 23 years. So I was 26.
Okay, so you were a young man at the time. Had you finished high school?
Yeah, I was allowed to finish it at home.
So you finished high school and no college or no interest in doing anything post high school?
No, because like I said, I worked when I was in school since I was 13. I did a milk run. I was a milkman for like 7 years, delivering milk to like 700 or 800 houses every day.
So you knew what it was like to make money, and you had money at a very young age, but you also had a work ethic in making that money. And so you worked hard and you kind of played hard as well, is what I'm gathering.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So when you come to the States, what's the process for people who are listening or watching? What's the process for a young man from Ireland to come over to the States? What type of paperwork did they have to complete? What do they have to do to get over here?
So at the time, that was, it was before 9/11. So it was a different process, right? It was a little bit easier because the paperwork was, not shone upon, right? Obviously, when that happened, it was a very different.
Yeah.
The thing is that you have to go anywhere you go in the world. You have to go and feel it out. You've got to go and see, do you like it? I was here 2 months. I wanted to go home. I didn't want to go home because I didn't like. Yeah, I didn't want to go home because I didn't like the U.S. I wanted to go home because I didn't think I could survive. I didn't think I was capable of maturing into being what I was seeing of what people were doing. So I was meeting people, and then they were telling me, yeah, I've got this business, or I do this, or I work here. And I'm like, how does a guy from me, how do I fit into this? Like, I don't know anybody except this person. And how do I get into that scenario? Like, they have 23 years ahead of me. I'm always going to be playing catch up. And I start telling myself that. And then that's when the guy I came to set me down. He says, you want to go home? I'll book you a flight. But you give it up on yourself, because America's got the option. It's not going to just give it to you. You got to go get it. So if you want to go, get on the plane. Well, if you want to work at it and you want to grow and you potentially want to become something, don't just ask for it. You got to go get it. And that's exactly how I ended up staying here.
So you ended up staying. He convinced you to stay.
He walked away from me. He said, let me know you want to book your flight. I was looking around me and I'm like, what am I going to go back to Ireland for? It's a big decision to make because, yeah, I'll move into America. There's no commitment because you can come back.
Yeah.
But then when you come over, it's not about having a fun and a party. When I came over at that time, then my, soon-to-be ex-wife was my girlfriend. And she was visiting me because I was homesick. So she would come over and hang out. And during her time visiting me, she got pregnant. So not only did I have an option to make it work for me, I now have to put a life in front of me for a woman and a child, and I have to do it right by them because that's the way I was brought up. So now I'm in a country who I'm like, this is all very new. I've never had a kid. I've never been married. And now I have everything coming on top of me. So it
hits you.
Yes. So that's when you either rise or you fall.
Yeah. So were you in the New York area? Because I know you're in the New York, New Jersey area now. Is that where you initially went?
I was in the New York area. Yeah.
Okay. So what was your first job? What did you do?
Secretary.
So you were a secretary for your first job. Wow.
Secretary. So again, the person that came over there goes, you have to learn how people talk over here. You have to understand what they mean. You can't walk into somebody and just start talking to them because you come from a country where it's totally different. And the meaning of terms you have to understand and learn it. I'm like, that's fucking crazy. We speak English. What's the problem? And then he tries some tricks with me, and I'm like, holy shit. I mean,
Yeah.
people, I didn't grasp, they didn't grasp me. I've slowed down how I speak a lot. I used to talk so much faster, and people would be like, what did he say? Like, they wouldn't understand me. So, I mean, that's another curve that you have to learn to like mold yourself to be like able to fit in so that you could get your point across, and that took a good year as well.
You reached down deep inside. You had to make a lot of decisions. You obviously had a lot of responsibility on your shoulders as a young man, but you had a complete shift. It's like your world turned upside down, like a snow globe, with regard to your responsibilities from when you came over. And I'm sure there was a lot of pressure on you at the time too. Talk a little bit about how you went through the grind. I don't know if you necessarily woke up one day and said, I want to run this business. I mean, we'll get into your business and what you do now, but tell me a little bit about the evolution of the grind, through this cultural impact and, working as a secretary and leading up to, potentially building your own business.
Right. So as a secretary, you got to learn how to speak on a phone. So that's a big play in business, taking names, remembering numbers, and go back and forth, right? Emails. I never had a computer. So now I'm looking at a screen and I was like, AOL, you got mail. I'm like, what is this?
Oh yeah, back then. That's right.
Yeah, like, what is this thing? Like, this is crazy. I'm like,
electric.
Do you guys faxes and faxes were and teletexts, but on the flip side of it, I come to a country and came from a country where we text. So when I land here, I'm like, guys, how do you talk? Do you text people? They're like, what do you mean you text people? Somebody's so absurd. We call people. I'm like, no, you text people. They're like, you mean a beeper? I'm like, not a fucking beeper. I mean,
that's right. We had beepers back then. We didn't have text.
No.
But in Ireland, you were texting?
Texting way ahead. That's what I don't understand. This is where I never understand the overlay of this, the way it works. Some of the stuff Ireland is so more advanced, and it leaves America looking like they're standing still. And then the rest of the part, America is like, what is that country? What is it doing over there?
So what did you have? Blackberries? I mean, what did you text?
Nokia, Blackberries. I mean, like, texting was a huge thing.
Wow, we didn't. Yeah, it was new. I don't even remember when it kind of evolved itself. I mean, maybe with the iPhone for me, I remember it a little bit, but I remember beepers. It was a beeper. We had these beepers.
Yeah, I remember.
Gosh.
So text and so email. I had to learn how to email, schedule people, make appointments, and then they throw all they throw all this stuff at me. Hey, we need breakfast for these guys. The breakfast place is there. This is what they want, and I'd be like, well, how do I do this? I never ordered breakfast for anybody. So I learned the bells and whistles of like being a person that's needed, right? So then again, the same person, Billy, told me, the more you can do, the more you're needed. The less you can do, the easier you're replaced. That's how life works in every aspect. And I learned after like being here for a while, people don't want no's. They want yeses in this country. So I start figuring it out. So I went to him one day and I said, listen, I want to paint. I want to be a painter. He's like, okay, we have a job downtown. Go get a guy. Go get a paint can. Here's the walls. Here's the building. You paint the job. So I went in and I painted, and he came in after me and he's like, you're meant to paint the walls. I had that much paint on me. I looked like a fucking clown. I had paint coming down my hair. But he gave me the chance to try it. And I fixed it and I did it right. But I figured I could do it, right? So I did it for about a year and I got really good at it and I had a little business. And a lull came up again, to be honest, because I got bored. I remember where I was on York Avenue in New York City and I was painting a door frame. And this is going to sound stupid, but a boat went by and there's a bunch of people on it. And I'm like there painting and I'm looking at the window going, I'm like, I mean, that's a better life than this, right? Not there's anything wrong.
Sure,
like,
sure.
How do you get to that point, right? So I'm like, I can't stroke this bush for the rest of my life. I just can't. So then I start thinking about how much more of a painter I can become. I'm like, you can't. There's a glass roof, and then you go into the 1% of it that people have been there for generations after generation. So I'm like, all right. So I kind of gave that up and said, you know what, I don't know what to do. I'm kind of like at loss. So then I got introduced to somebody who was then going to become my boss. He was an electrical contractor. He said, listen, I heard you're pretty smart. You want to come work for me for a while? He goes, I'll give you $20 an hour. So I was like, oh, $20 an hour. Back then was easy money, right? It was like nice money to make. I'm like, okay, this is good. So I went working for him, and then I became like a dispatcher. So I used to work in UPS years ago, and I'm very logistically minded. If that, that's kind of one of my top pips. Like, I'm really good at logistics.
So for some of our listeners and viewers, logistics, what do you mean by logistics? I understand what you mean, but just in general, what do you mean by logistics?
So like logistically making, it doesn't matter. A lot of people say it's, transport. Logistics is everything. It's how you move something from here to there, regardless to what it is. Most efficient way to do it. The fastest way, obviously, while it's being efficient, execute it and maximize it all the time. I'm moving containers from New York to New Jersey. That's logistics. I have to figure out cheapest carrier, quickest route, storage. I don't want to pay storage while I have the units, right? All that kind of stuff. So logistically, I would get, like when I worked for UPS, we would pick up 100 deliveries. I would leave them outside the van. I would throw them into the van from last to first. My first stop, I open the door, boom, like just all stuff like that. And I learned that from being a milkman, because you have to learn, like when you pull up on a street, right? You've got a milk truck. Two sides are open. You've got bottles and you've got cartons and you've got stuff. Every house gets milk, or maybe every other house, or wherever it is. So you remember your side, but you have to know the other side in case the other guy is not working. So you have to remember both sides. So when you get around, you can't carry milk to every door, and you're not going to do one house at a time. Again, it's logistics. I'm taking these 6 houses. You pull the truck up. You go back to 6 houses. I'll pull the truck up, and it was logistics all the way along. So
you had vision. You had a vision, right, with regard how things played out in regard to a process.
Right.
And you were able to apply it in different disciplines.
Exactly.
And so you picked up on that. So that tells me you have somewhat of an abstract mind to be able to put that together, in spite of your claiming that you didn't like school or whatever. There's different ways people learn. I don't think school necessarily, indicates one's intellect at all. So tell me, so you get to work with this guy and you're doing this. What are you handling for the guy on the electrical side? Because I know you're in the electrical business now.
Yeah. Well, this is the guy that got me into it. This is how it all started. So I went working for him, and he had said, he goes, listen, start in the van doing deliveries. So he would set me up and say, you gotta understand, I didn't know where I was going either. So I would have to figure out how to get from New Jersey to New York. He would tell me, but at the same time, I don't really like going back to ask people what they meant. I don't like going back to ask people, give me the directions again. I'd rather get lost and figure it out than look like I don't really know what they've just spent the time telling me, if I felt they were trying to make me learn, which is a big thing that doesn't happen anymore. So he was telling me what I had to do. I would get to the city. I would do the deliveries for the jobs logistically. I figured out it was a grid. I kind of knew that, but
it's a grid. Yeah, exactly.
So, and then I kind of I can drive down here, turn around, drive back up to this one. So I was doing this. I would get back to the office sometimes. He's like, you really got to get to the city, Paul. Like, I don't know what you're doing. I'm like, I'm done. He's like, I remember he had an Ecoline Ford van. It was a V10. That was like driving a Rolls Royce for me. A V10 in a van.
Yeah.
Smelled gasoline just burning as I was burning down the turnpike, talking to my friends, going, I'm driving a V10 van. We don't have V10 cars in Ireland. I'm driving a fucking van to the city in a V10, right? So that's where I kind of, I've always had a need for speed, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the truth he used to say to me. And then when I get back to the office, then he started going, hey, can you look at this plan? I'm like, what's a plan? He's like, it's a drawing. I'm like, what's a drawing? Like, just show me. And he would show me items to pick out. And then I would start writing stuff down that I see in the plan. And that's an estimate. It's a takeoff. So he was coasting me. He was letting me learn as I wanted to learn, and he would give me stuff, but I would never finish what I was doing until I accomplished how to do it. So logistically, I knew what the tools were, where they go, material, you have to have material on a job to keep on going. Then I figured out what the scopes of work were. And then he used to have me go to the job to look at the jobs to make sure that the material was being used. No ladders were being left over. Small stuff that make a lot of impact to a small business that you could lose money on.
This was Billy, the same individual?
This guy was Kevin.
Okay, so Kevin obviously impacted your life a lot.
Yes, yeah. Kevin taught me he taught me the dynamics of how what he does as a tradesman gets applied in the industry. And I brought to him the mindset to grow, because we went from being a company with 7 or 8 guys to one point where we had 200 guys.
Wow.
And that was because after I figured out, hey, I really like what I do. I'm actually enjoying this. Now I start reaching to people that I've met. Hey, we do electrical. Hey, come to our building. So then I start bringing work to the job, to his company. And he was like, okay, this is exactly what I wanted the outcome of this. So then I became like a project manager of sorts, because I was kind of managing projects, but I really wasn't, because he was the one that was building the jobs. And then I was the one that was building the company. So I was making sure there was money coming in, jobs are coming in, people were paying, new work, finishing old work, transitioning. And we both found a very good place for both of us to be, and it worked. And
it kept the fire. It sounds to me that it kept the fire in you glowing, not like your previous stints, right? You didn't get bored because you kept growing.
Every job is different. Every job, every drawing you look at, every day is a different story. It's a different problem. It's a new direction you got to go, and you got to figure, oh God, I didn't know that. That's the way that happens. Okay. So if you sleep, you don't have time to sleep on it. You can't sleep on it, because if you sleep on it, you're not catching up. You're not staying ahead. So I knew that it was a very active place to be. And that's where I stayed with him I think I worked for Kevin for 10 years.
So that's where you really got your experience. And then from there, what happened?
So from there, the economy went under, as we all know, to 2007, whatever it was.
That was when I invested in a real estate startup. Great timing for me.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to get back to you. So we were always trying to figure out what's the pattern here. And I soon realized I will never be an owner of this company, because it's his. He started it, and I don't deserve it. But I wanted to own my own business. I was at the point where I wanted it. Now the market's changed. Now we don't have as many men. The economy's coming down. The work is not there. And I had worked myself up to a pretty substantial salary. I got a new car every year, big salary. Now have 2 kids, not 1. We're living a lifestyle that to me was like, wow, I never imagined I would live like this. So I had to make a decision on staying and just back to the paintbrush. Am I just going to do this for the rest of my life, or what's the next move? And then that's why I decided to create Eco Electric.
So you made the decision. It was in you. You made the decision. It was time to go out on your own. Was it a nasty divorce? Was it a amicable divorce? How was it as far as the transition? It was very
amicable, because I think Kevin knew that the next stop for me was that. And he's a very caring guy. He's got a very good heart, probably the best electrician I've ever met in my life. Super intelligent, way ahead of himself. So I learned from the best, if you really want to say that. And he taught me some factors, and I taught him. So I think we both felt at the time, listen, we both learned a lot here. We both have a ton to thank for this, right? We were getting crazy. We were going out buying matching pickup trucks and boats. And life got good, right? So
Sure.
There was always this, and everything is rosy. There wasn't always great times, and stuff happens in business. So, but for the best part, yeah, it was a good. But the transition, was more bittersweet. It's bitter because it's sad to see it happen.
You probably became very close friends
Yes.
with the ups and downs and experiences that business owners have, even though you were like a pseudo business owner. What I think occurred in part was that you basically felt like an owner, and that's how you operated when you were working for Kevin. It
Correct.
wasn't, and he made you feel that way, even though from an equity perspective, you probably didn't have any equity, but he also knew it was time for you to move on. So
Correct.
you make that transition, and it's got to be pretty scary in the beginning. Or did you transition with jobs already in the works?
So I made the transition with no jobs because we had to separate. So I'm like, I had brought people into the company and I said, listen, it's only fair if I ask this group of people if when I get set up, if they want to come work for me. They've never dealt with you. They only know me. They know who you are. Everybody knows you're the boss, but like, I have to ask them if you're okay with that. If they choose to stay, I'm okay with it. But if they choose to go, are you okay with it? And he said, I'm fine. There was one or two jobs that I knew that were coming. And I said to him, I'm not bringing these to the company. I'm going to eventually take these myself to get going. But these other 5 jobs, and one of them was substantially big, are yours. So Eco Electric is a sustainable company. It was created on the mindset of energy cost savings. My mindset was to have a niche in the industry and not really be his competitor, because that's the other side of this, right? I can't be my guy who gave me a step in this industry. Now I go to bid against him. It's like whatever, which we still don't cross paths, which is ironic. I mean, at least I don't. Maybe he doesn't tell me, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
So listen, look, this is simple the way it worked. I went out, I created a sustainable company. The motto was helping you be responsible today for tomorrow. That's our motto. So we would analyze your building, find out where we could save you money by changing your old fluorescent light bulbs, the big old fluorescent bulbs, to LEDs. We would then procure the cost savings. We would sell you the project saying ROI on this job is 60 grand over 3 years. There's an upfront cost of 30. We're going to pay the 30. You pay us on the savings. So we slid into all these buildings real quick.
Wow.
First of all, the economy's in a shitter. We're bringing product to the table and they don't have to pay to get it installed. And they only pay us based on the savings that they see in their electricity.
How did you come up with this concept and this idea? There was obviously a need for it. That's what they say in business, right? You find a need and fill it. You found a need. How did you do that?
I was introduced to somebody who was doing solar at the time, and he mentioned LED and the cost of savings. And this was a job in Virginia. And I said, I'm going to look into this lighting thing because I had become very acquainted with lighting because of what I was doing. So Kevin was more on the side of commercial. I was more on the side of residential. So I understood the lighting from a different standpoint than he did. So I was always able to learn more and understand the lower outputs means less, more savings, less energy, just whatever. So I figured out how to apply it. And then we got involved with this other building company who had, I think they're like 600 buildings in the city. I'm not even kidding. That's how many buildings they have between the Bronx.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we just went through them. Lockheed Martin were involved because it was a big savings, Con Edison. So we were going to buildings doing audits. Now I was going and doing 6-7 buildings a day. You'd walk every stairwell, every floorway. And we were just signing off on audits and people were just like, here, yeah, let's go. So we couldn't even keep inventory in because people were signing up so fast. And then what would happen is once they get their credits in from Con Edison, in their tax credit, they would just buy us out. And they'd be like, listen, we're just paying you because we just want to keep the savings. We have the money, write the electrician the check. So then we got fronted all this money from these jobs and it worked out in our favor. So that's originally what Eco Electric was designed to do. And then I just got people just call me. They're like, listen, I heard you went out on your own. I'm like, yeah, we have a job for you. We have a job for you. We have a job for you. And that's it.
Yeah. So obviously you developed a strong reputation in the community. You had developed it over the years, 10 plus years working with Kevin.
Yeah.
You from what I gather from our discussions, you essentially learned each and every phase of the business. In other words, you weren't afraid to get your hands dirty in any particular area of the
Right.
job, and no laborer or position, was beneath you.
No,
Correct?
no. If you can't tell someone to do something that you don't know how to do yourself. I'm not an electrician. I've never been an electrician. I've only terminated small cables. I'm not an electrician. I tell people this all the time. That's probably the better thing for me, because I can focus on what's more important, because I have electricians licensed working for me that's their job, is to make everything work. Now, listen, I understand electrical better than most engineers and a lot of electricians, because that's just the way it is, right? I'm interested, but I'm not going to go and sit to get my test, because that's not how it works. But if I can put food on the table for 100 electricians versus being an electrician with the mindset like Kevin had, every morning going through to find a breaker that was in the back, instead of just ordering and getting it installed, he'd spend 4 hours looking for this breaker. To me, that was a lost cause. Me, buy the breaker, get installed. You can't take back lost labor. It's gone. You can't reinvent it. Time has passed. It's dead money. And lost labor kills every business. It's not the material.
It's like you have this vision. You understood. I guess it really started from an early age, unbeknownst to you, where you were learning about business, you were learning about logistics, you were learning about things, but from a higher level. And what I mean by that is that you weren't so interested in how the widget was made. You were interested in how I can move maybe 100 widgets. It was scaling, basically scalability.
That's it. Like a simple thing. When I finished doing the milk round, if I had more than 2 or 3 cartons of milk left over, I was upset, because I should be taking out of there what I'm delivering. I should have no waste. And that's always the way I go back to that every time. I'm like, I don't know if I credit Kevin's years of experience as an electrician or my years of experience of delivering milk that made me become more successful. I still go back to being a milkman. It's funny because people do Instagram me. They're like, "Oh my God, I see you on TV. You used to buy milk." I remember your mom used to deliver milk. Yeah.
Wow.
But listen, I love it. I'm not ashamed of it. I think it was amazing.
I had somebody on. He's one of our guests. He's a general counsel for an international aesthetic company, MERS Aesthetics, and he talked about he had a paper route, and that paper route he did till he was like 19, and I had a paper route growing up too, and I remember it like it was yesterday, and it instilled in me it was this focus and this work and the consequences of the work and dealing with people. Holidays would come around, maybe get a little bit of a bonus. Being able to buy something out of a magazine if I sold, different things like that. But I also remember I had to buy the papers. So like when you talk about waste, I remember that buying those papers was out of my pocket. I had to make sure I sold them all so I could make a little bit on the margins. So there was no waste. It's really interesting how you took that into where you are now. So tell me a little bit, just for our viewers and listeners, what are you involved in now? What type of things does your company do now?
So just to go back to that person, a couple of people have messaged me on Instagram, but I told her where her mom used to get as a delivery, and that blew her mind.
Oh, that you remembered.
She was like, my mom was like, holy shit. But she forgot.
Yeah. That's again,
you remember what you love, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And that's what I loved, So now, so roll on again another 10 years, right? So to speak. So we're fortunate. We really don't do sustainable work anymore, because the truth is, when the economy is good and the market's good, no one's really thinking about how can I save money, right? Their first go-to is not how can I save money. But when we're building a job and a new development, whether it's a high rise in the city or someone's pool house or an established house in the Hamptons, wherever it is, the process is always sustainable. That's just the market now of design, right? Oh, it's LED, no maintenance, it lasts forever. We'll do this in the ground. We'll do geothermal. We'll do floor sensors, no more radiators. So you're kind of always in the niche of sustainable, but the market just doesn't call for it because it's good. If the market does this, the older buildings, again, you go after because all the newer buildings are pre-qualified under the new laws. So they're all efficient now. So predominantly, we are a residential, high-end residential electrical contractor. Not your typical homes. We do everything, but we just started a project in Long Island right now, 20,000 square feet. It's going to be a very nice home. We're doing a project in the city, townhouses. They range from 30,000 square feet to 40,000 square feet.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
wow.
They're like 2 or 3 townhouses together. Apartments, triplexes, 3 stories, 1 apartment. So we see a lot of very cool stuff. And it's for the 1%ers of the world. We've done work in Miami, same concept, the Hamptons, New Jersey. And again, I've became good friends with other people around, like in Vegas. I became good friends with a guy in California who changed the name of his company to Eco Electric so that he could do work with me. And it's ironic, but I gave him a business idea that he had an electrical company, and I said, why don't you do this? This way it looks like it's a transition. They think it's me, but it's really you. The client's going to be okay. I don't care. And after a while, I was just like, listen, just go with it. I don't even stop sending me checks. I don't care. Just do it. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So you've transitioned a little bit. I mean, obviously, people may think that just because somebody's buying a multi-million-dollar home or has millions of dollars, that they're not going to care about the bottom line. They're not going to care about the cost associated with doing things. How are your clients and how do you deal with that?
So everybody's more educated in the world now. So clients now feel that they're more educated on building because now they have time while they're sitting doing nothing to learn because it's accessible to them. So nothing's far away. You have clients that now when you mention a product, they can Google it. They can see your review. They understand it. So if you're not up to par on what you're selling and you don't know the backstory to the whole company and you don't have the reference points, a client is not that successful for no reason. They're normally very smart people. So if you're not dealing with the client and you're dealing with the client rep, they can really figure out who's here for the real deal. Who's looking, listen, we want you to make money, but we have to look after our client. That's always the way it's sold, right? We don't want to, everybody's entitled to make whatever they're making, within reason, but preference is always looking out for the client. I think that over the years of what I've done, I went back to when I said earlier on, when people don't like no, they like yes. I've looked at things like, you have a problem and I'm the reason you're hiring me to fix your problem. That's kind of, I'm your headache pill. You have a headache, take the pill, it goes away. That's the process to where I've put myself. So when a job comes up and there's an engineering dynamic or a construction problem or something obscure, I think because I'm not pigeonholed into the one way of thinking from an electrical standpoint or an engineer standpoint, I'm more overlooking. I find the easiest logistically way to step up and fix the problem. And it's normally common sense anyway.
So again, it goes back to looking at the bigger picture, not just being so secular or linear with regard to doing electrical work. It's a larger scope that you bring to the table for these people, and that's helped you build your successful business.
Every problem has a resolution. There's no problem that doesn't have a resolution. You might not like it, might be not what you want to hear, might be not what you want to spend, but there's a resolution to every problem. If you're the problem fixer to the problem, well, then you get a name for, hey, we have a problem in this job, call him. I've got calls on other jobs where other electrical contractors are working and they're having issues, and we'll help them out and be like, hey, this is what we've done in the past and this works. And they go and say, hey, it's the code, it's fine. Like that's just how it works. And I think that comes from the education that I got from Kevin. If you fail to prepare, prepare to fail. Right? So that was always his mindset. He didn't even understand that that's what he was doing, but that's his mindset. And if
Well,
you
preparation, yes, exactly.
everything,
Preparation in anything that you do
I
in
learned
life.
I learned this painting. The guy said to me, I don't care how you can paint, I care how you prep. When you sand the wall or you sand the wood, when you take all the nails and you file everything down and it's smooth, when you paint, it looks good. But if it's not, it won't look good. Again, you're preparing everything. So once you prepare it, and so, then you succeed.
It's a good point. I gotta catch this bullet, and we've only got like 5 minutes left with you, and we need to bring you back because there's so much more I want to go over with you. Preparation is key, and I'll tell you from my experience how I learned that the hard way as a young lawyer. I start out with this firm, and this senior partner tells me to come in the car with me, and he hands me a file, and he says, "We're going to take a deposition of a doctor," and I'm like, what do you mean? I'd never taken a deposition before. I had no idea. I was a babe in the woods. All right. Yeah. A deposition is basically sworn testimony under oath. I'm supposed to take this deposition of this doctor on this case. He hands it to me in the car, and I'm supposed to prep as we're driving to the deposition. I'm a nervous wreck. I'm reading through these documents. I'm like trying to figure out the case, going through this whole thing. We go and do the deposition. I remember like it was yesterday. The doctor was a complete condescending ass. He was so arrogant and rude to me. It was terrible. Unbeknownst to me, my senior partner had talked to the other attorney and had set this up. In other words, he had contacted the other attorney and said he was going to do this to me. The senior partner eventually took over the deposition, finished up the deposition, got me back in the car, and he said to me, "Well, how do you think that went? How do you feel?" And I said, "I'm pissed." I go, "I can't believe you did that to me. I was terrible." He goes, "What do you think? What do you think you learned from this?" I go, "I wasn't prepared." He goes, "You're damn right." He said, "You'll always be prepared going forward from now on."
Be prepared. You'll always be prepared.
And that's one thing. Preparation. I tell people, I don't care what you're doing. Preparation is key to it. So for you and your business, I could understand it would be exponentially so important because of the impact on your projects and what you're dealing with and so many moving parts. I mean, I couldn't even imagine from an electrical perspective, all the different things. And you basically are the conductor putting together all these various people to do things. Yes, you have taskmasters that are doing specific tasks, but it's kind of like the conductor who has all the different instruments, all the people playing different instruments.
But when it's wrong, it lands on me because I can't turn around and blame my team on what happened because I'm responsible. And I think that's a very important part of having a business is that your team know that when the sword comes down, you're going to stand there to take that sword. And I became that kind of in the industry. People know that I don't let people abuse my staff. I don't do it. I mean, I don't care how much work you give me. You can't abuse my staff. You just can't do it. You can speak to them on a manner, on a tone that you're upset, but you can't abuse them. And they will do more for you when they feel like that. And I think these are also points that like people get upset, but that's okay. It's that one scenario. Don't forget the 10 years of working with somebody, you never had a problem. You can't blow it all on this one scenario. And unless you're either out of your depth or you're not understanding that stuff can happen and anything can happen. I've made mistakes. I've recently made a stupid mistake on something. I told my guy to do it. They call me up and they're like, "Listen," I'm like, "Well, we have to change it. I made a mistake. What can I do? What can I do?" I did not take the time to read something. I seen a line item. I said yes. It wasn't a big deal, but still, my staff seen me made that mistake. But they went through it because they just thought maybe there's a process to why he's doing it this way. Where if they had said, "Hey, boss, you sure about this?" I would have went, "Absolutely fucking not. Sorry, you caught me good." But that's not their fault. That's my fault. So it still happens, but will I let it happen again? Not a chance. No way.
Well, you learned from it, but the other part that you brought up is that you can't manage your life by an outlier. you know, the relationships that you've developed, the business that you've developed over the years, and even dealing with the people. And we'll talk about managing people too, because you have people you have to manage and lead. They're going to watch you. And if you don't have their backs on things, especially obviously good employees, people who work for you, they want to see that you don't want that. You ensure that they don't get beat up. You have their back, so to speak, and they'll bleed for you. They'll be there for you, you know?
Yeah. If you have a disgruntled employee, you'll be better off getting a sign in Times Square that says that your company sucks.
Yep.
Because that's how bad it is. A disgruntled employee is like an advertisement to say that you are the worst business in the world. Because there's a reason why he's disgruntled, or they are, or she is, or whoever it is. And you have to not let that happen. So what you do is you logistically put everything together, and then you either import a way to fix it or you export the problem. But if you leave it simmer because people think, oh, it's just this, it's just that, it never corrects itself and it gets worse.
It's that passive aggressive. Yeah, it's that passive aggressive. People think they put their head in the sand, it's going to disappear. No, but leaders are supposed to confront, you know, business owners need to work through to move forward. Absolutely.
It's very important.
We're going to have to finish up with you. I know you have to go. You're a busy man. We took all this time building you up. I want to talk about your visions and some of the other things you've learned over the years. And if we could bring you back, I'd love to be able to bring you back.
You know, this is great. There's a lot more to it. And again, like, I think what you're doing is great. I think that people need to hear from people that come through, you know, the trenches, because I definitely did. And it's okay to not have, you know, a college degree. It's okay to not have a certificate that says you're XYZ of a human. I'm proof of that.
Absolutely.
Know? And I never get embarrassed when people say, you don't have an electrical license? I'm like, no. Why do I need one?
You are the epitome of the American dream. I mean, frankly, when you talk to people about it, I mean, it's amazing in this day and age, especially, you know, how there's so many haters out there of America and the fact that, you know, gimme. I mean, you can go, you went out there, it's there for the taking, and you basically applied yourself and the proof is in the pudding. I mean, nobody gave you anything, but you had America available for you to apply.
Everybody does. Everybody has America available for them. Everybody has an option. People choose paths because of their training to get there. You go to the gym, you go and do 5 minutes cardio or an hour's cardio. It's based on your level. They pick the shortest path because it's easier. Sometimes it's easier to complain. Just the way it is. I just don't see the sense.
So true. So true. All right. Well, I'm going to finish up. I just want to thank you again for coming. Everybody, our listeners, we're going to bring Paul on again. We didn't cover a lot of things. If there's things you'd like us to cover, please feel free. Send us a DM, send us an email. Subscribe if you like, hit the like button. And remember all, keep it Pro-2-Pro. That's all for today's episode of Pro-2-Pro. I hope you enjoyed hearing from our guest and gained some valuable insights into the world of entrepreneurship. Like and subscribe to stay up to date with the latest episodes. And don't forget to follow us on social media. Thanks for watching and listening. And remember to keep it Pro-2-Pro.